This is Miss Cooper with your Week 5 summary review. There are a lot of documents that we got this week, but I want to make sure that you have all of them. You should have received a study guide. It looks like this. That's an important document. There are questions from that document about Cubism, Impressionism, the New Elite, electricity, the working class or the lower class. Those are the things that are on there from that particular document. You should have also received a PowerPoint. The PowerPoint, the most pertinent pieces from that dealt with factory work in terms of urbanization, how it changed cities. More people moved into the cities, and the growing population, it was good because it provided more work. But the negative was the cities were larger and people weren't really taking care of these cities. The landlords were not taking care of the properties. People were dying at the age of 17. That was a lifespan in a typical city. There is definitely a word here, Luddites, Luddites. These were groups who destroyed machinery because they felt the machinery was putting them out of work. So you go destroy the machinery? Yeah, that Luddites. Unemployment was a serious problem. And the people who were unemployed, they did riot. The work days, the average work day was 14 hours a day. And you worked 6 days a week. And you worked 12 months out of the year. That means you never had a break. But these factories were often dirty, poorly lit, and people were injured easily. Some of the positive effects: there were jobs created, and there was some expansion to education for people who were moving up the ladder and making a little bit more money. The philosophers of industrialization, these are important. These are important names. Thomas Malthus and David Ricardo. Both of these people, they boost that concept of laissez-faire. Remember, laissez-faire means hands off. Let the businesses do whatever they want. Let them make money. But they were not treating people very well. And they were working women and children. And children were sometimes 6 years old. And that went on for quite some time until they made a law that said you can't do that anymore. Now, something interesting about David Ricardo: he envisioned a permanent poor underclass that would provide cheap labor. Yeah, he pretty much said there's a group of people that we're going to always keep down, and they're always going to be a permanent underclass. The word stock, limited ownership, usually sold to raise money, a stock. A corporation is a company owned by stockholders. They share profits, not debts. Large corporations attempt to control as much business as they can. There's a name, Samuel Slater. He establishes a textile mill in the United States. Okay. In this, by 1820, manufacturing towns were springing up all around the United States. Interesting. Young single women were often flocking to the factories to get more independence because they could maintain income. Adam Smith, he's associated with writing a book called The Wealth of Nations. In that book, he believes economic liberty guarantees economic progress. Very important. In 1847, the workday for women and children was limited to 10 hours in Britain. In 1842, the Mines Act in Britain stops women and children from working underground. In 1904, the United States ends child labor and sets maximum hours. So be mindful of the fact that you are of a generation that gets to go to school, because many young people and children throughout the world, including the United States, were forced to work in uncomfortable and unsafe working conditions for a very long time. In 1819, the Factory Act, it restricts the working age as well as hours, because children as young as 6, in Manchester were literally working in factories. Most of Europe, according to the map that you have in your document, was industrialized at least by the mid-1800s. The majority of Europe. Some of the European nations are industrialized by the late 1800s. Those countries look like Russia, Austria-Hungary, Italy, Sweden, Norway, by the late 1800s. But by the mid-1800s, you had Great Britain, the Ottoman Empire, France, Germany, Portugal, Spain, okay? By the mid-1800s. That's how I want you to interpret that map. Who is industrialized by when? By what time? And then you have Karl Marx, Frederick Engels, Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill, Robert Owen. Robert Owen founded a utopian community in New Harmony, Indiana. Socialism, that's the definition, communism, socialism, and capitalism. All of those words will appear on your quiz. Utilitarianism, to judge things by their usefulness. John Stuart Mill, he favored regulation to help workers, and he wanted to spread wealth. Jeremy Bentham is the person that coined the term utilitarianism. Karl Marx and Frederick Engels are the authors of the Communist Manifesto, a very important document that detailed the ideas of a socialist state. Socialism and communism are very closely related. Usually the end goal of socialism is to have complete ownership of the state. It doesn't have to go that way, but it can. And at the early start of it, some people thought that might be a better way to live. Unions. Unions are associations formed by laborers to work for change. These unions often establish organized strikes, which means we're going to walk out. We're not going to work. Okay. And any and everything that's in the PowerPoint, it can appear in the quiz. Definitely everything from chapters 1 through 4 will be there, which is in Lancaster County, the Palace of Versailles, the Petition of Right, the Divine Right of Kings, the English Civil War, the Glorious Revolution, all the way down to the 30 Years' War. Then in chapter 2, we dealt with the scientific method. We dealt with the Magna Carta. We talked about Rene Descartes and the Enlightenment thinkers, Mozart, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the Declaration of Rights and Grievances, women's rights, John Wesley and the Methodist Church, Chapter 3, we dealt with the French Revolution, the storming of the Bastille, First, Second, and Third Estate, Napoleon and his rise to power. Chapter 4, we begin the discussion on the Industrial Revolution, Josiah Wedgwood, the Spinning Jenny, James Watt, Thomas Newcomen, Richard Trevithick, George Stephenson. And in Chapter 5, we have dealt with Cubism, Impressionism, the new elite, the European population that made up the majority, communism, the Mines Act, the Factory Act, the British and their interaction in Belgium, specifically in the year 1799. Go back to your PowerPoint document to get that information. Henry Bessemer, Samuel Slater, Stock Corporation, Adam Smith, capitalism, John Stuart Mill, utilitarianism, the utopian community that was founded in 1824, the Communist Manifesto, communism, socialism, union strikes. Those are the items from Chapter 5. So yeah, that is pretty much in a nutshell what your quiz is going to look like. So I've provided everything that you need in these documents. I provided commentary on the videos, and I've also added supplemental videos to accommodate you and make sure that you have understanding of this information. There may be additional information coming from some of the videos, but I'm going to do my best to try to keep the majority of the information on your quiz coming from the things that are in printed paper. So let me know if you have questions, comments, or concerns. Email me at tjcooper@jmcss.org.